Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76. We're very happy to have you here on this December 26th, the first day after Christmas, and I hope that your Christmas was blessed with just taking time to celebrate our salvation in Christ Jesus and that tremendous gift that our Lord gave in His own Son. Well, we've got some interesting things to talk about tonight. One of the first things that I want to talk about is the very topic that I just addressed, and I put in the teaser, in the announcement. What do you think Joseph and Mary did on the day after Jesus' birth? And we're not going to get into the date and that situation. The one thing we know is that it wasn't December 25th, but for our purposes, that does not matter. What do you think they did? Think about their day, because we and rightly so, we have these very emotional, nostalgic ideas about the birth of Christ and that amazing thing that took place with the shepherds, with the angels, all of that taking place. And then the next day, after a very long night, not much sleep, Joseph and Mary had to wake up. They had a baby to care for in very difficult circumstances. And I've always wondered, Joseph was from Bethlehem, but yet they had to have that child out in a barn that was more than likely a cave, because that was the kind of place that they would keep animals and where a manger would be. But hopefully they were able somehow to move into better accommodations. But my point is this: it's not a great, deep, profound theological point, I don't believe, but they had to get on with life. They had to get on with life. Mary, we're told in verse 20 of chapter 2 of Luke, and the shepherds returned, glorifying God, praising God for all they had seen and heard as it had been told them. And we're told many times Mary pondered all these things in her heart, but they had to go about life. That they had to take care of the details, the mundane things of life, although not that mundane, because it was exciting. They had a new child, but life was hard. Life was difficult. They still had a journey to return to Nazareth, which was quite a journey that they had to take. But it's just interesting to think, because oftentimes after the Christmas holiday, we kind of have this let down, Christmas is over, we got to get on with life. Mary and Joseph had even more of that same situation. They had to get on with life. They had to move ahead. They had a child to care for, the challenge of getting back home to Nazareth, all of that. But it's just interesting. I find it interesting to stop and think about the realities of life for these people with whom we feel very familiar because they're key figures in the scriptures. Just interesting to think about what life was like for them, and they too had to knuckle down, get back to life, and get moving ahead. And they had some great challenges coming, having to eventually take off and go to Egypt to save the baby's life. But we're not going into all the doctrinal points of that. Just wanted to plant that idea and something for us to think about. Okay, the other day we talked about the tabletop exercise pandemic thing that they did. It was in the expose, and yeah, they're asking for help because their money keeps getting taken away from them. But it's here in the expose, and it was sequel to Event 201. The COVID pandemic is called Catastrophic Contagion, which simulated a pandemic in 2025, and it had the same players. This time Bill Gates was actually there and participated in this thing, and it seems very nefarious because they did their tabletop event exercise, Event 201, right before the COVID thing broke, however that came about, the cornholio, I should say, because we have to be careful how we talk about things. But this is another simulation, Catastrophic Contagion, and the same players are involved. So that's an important data point. We will have things that relate to that in what we're looking at today. But this is the story for today, and it is from Dr. Mercola's website. Again, Dr. Mercola is one of those websites that is on our helpful websites page. When you come here to research and resources, helpful websites, and you scroll down, you're going to find Dr. Mercola right there. Well, this story comes from that, and we're going to take a look at this. It's about the World Health Organization and the behind the scenes wranglings that are going on, things that are being put in place, that the World Health Organization, just in a nutshell, the World Health Organization is going to have even more power than they do now. And the World Health Organization isn't something that most of us think about all that frequently. But before we go in and digest this in great, well, we'll go ahead and jump in and start a little bit. I put this in a PDF so I can mark it up and make notes for myself. So I've got that now. It's the same article, same story, nice graphic there. And Bill Gates is the headline here. And we'll see why Bill Gates is the headline. He is a major player, a major funding source for the World Health Organization. There are proposed amendments in the International Health Regulations, IHR, it's referred to in this article, IHR, that are going to be put into place. They're in the works right now. And what they will accomplish is pretty drastic. It's pretty drastic. It's going to give all kinds of power to the World Health Organization. And the International Health Regulations it's a treaty that everyone, 190 some nations of the world, have signed off on. So it's going to be amended, and then those countries, enough of them will approve it, and it's the Senate that approves treaties, and we know how the Senate is right now. But these changes are going to be put into place. But I wanted to go into just a little bit of background on the World Health Organization, just real quick, what it is, and most importantly, who it is that runs it. Because you can tell a lot about an organization by looking at who runs that organization. So I've got a couple slides I want to pop up here. And I entitled this, if you're familiar with classic, so-called classic rock and roll, I guess I should put myself at the... There was a song by The Who, and it was, Who Are You? So this is about the World Health Organization. Who are you? Who? I really want to know. And it's important to know what these organizations are, how they're run, and who it is that runs them. So the United Nations, which frankly we don't hear about as much as we used to. The United Nations is the umbrella entity, okay? Underneath it, it has things about agriculture, education, all kinds of different organizations that have a lot of power, that get to spend a lot of money. And the World Health Organization is one of those. Now, when Trump was president, there was this big show made that he wasn't very happy with the way the World Health Organization had mishandled the cornholio plandemic, and so he cut off the funding from them. Do you know what he did with that funding? Because guess who's the major funding source of the World Health Organization. It's the United States, just like we're the major cash cow for the United Nations. He shut off that money. Do you know where it went instead? It went to an organization called Gavi, which is Global Something Vaccine Initiative, run by Bill Gates. And guess where that money went ahead and went anyway? It went ahead and landed in the coffers of the World Health Organization. Apart from that, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, over here, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, supplies to the World Health Organization $1 billion of the $4.84 billion budget for the World Health Organization. Bill Gates has tremendous power through his foundation that he gets to manipulate activities, and that's why on that article that we're looking at from Dr. Mercola, he's got Bill Gates as being the major player here, and he certainly is a very big player. He has been granted, in effect, all this money to put into a foundation that he can do whatever he wants with. And if you know how Bill Gates came about and how he really came to have all that money and how Microsoft came to be what it is, then you know what I'm talking about. None of these things came about the way they are described. Zuckerberg didn't come up with Twitter the way it says. Bill Gates didn't come up with Microsoft according to the narrative that we are told. These people are creations. They are creations, and then they are used to promote agendas. And Bill Gates has all that money in the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and he gets to use it to play power games around the world. And part of that is funding the World Health Organization. The guy who runs the World Health Organization, he's over here on the right. It's Dr. Tedros. He's got a PhD in public health. Okay. He's doctor. They always call him Dr. Tedros, but he's not the kind of doctor you think he is. He's got a PhD in public health. Who is he? What's his background story? You don't hear any of that. No one talks about where this guy originated from. He was the Ethiopian Minister of Foreign Affairs and then the health minister, but more importantly, in Ethiopia, a paragon of public health. If you're going to pick a public health leader for the whole world, why wouldn't you go to Ethiopia to pick that person? A little bit insane. But more than that, he was a major leader in Tigray People's Liberation Front. It is a Marxist terrorist organization that took over Ethiopia. So he was the Ethiopian minister of and he started off as a leader in Tigray People's Liberation Front. The history of that is not a pretty picture, but get this is what the United States Department of State Department says about the Tigray People's Liberation Front and the organization that it was folded into. Okay. U.S. State Department, the TPLF, then joined the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, a political coalition that became the governing coalition in Ethiopia. The EDRDF continues to control the government of Ethiopia. The TPLF qualifies as a Tier 3 terrorist organization under INA Section 20, a bunch of numbers, on the basis of its violent activities before it became part of the ruling coalition and the government of Ethiopia in May 1991. This is the guy who runs the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization that, by the way, back in 2017, got an article here. Get the right thing up on the screen. Got an article here from, National Review, talking about how corrupt the World Health Organization is. This is back from 2017, before any of the Cornholio stuff, and they were reporting all of these egregious activities of the World Health Organization. Probably top on the list, they spend $200 million a year on travel. That's more combined than they spend on AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria. So it's a corrupt organization through and through. And then this guy, through some nefarious dealings, ended up getting elected the president of, or the director general, I think they call it, of the World Health Organization. And in the description after the live stream, I will put the links to these different articles. But let's talk about these amendments that they're going to make to this treaty that is considered binding to all the nations that participate. They're going to make these changes, and the people in Washington, they will sign off on all of this, just like they sign off on everything else. That's the New World Order agenda. Just like, we want to think, no, they won't do this. They wouldn't sign off on this. There's no way that they would sign off on this. But they do, and they do it again and again with these different international elitist New World Order agendas. Okay? So this is a little bit of the information of what they're going to do. The proposed IHR amendments will erase the concepts of human dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms from the equation. The first principle in Act 3 of the 2005 IHR, International Health Regulation, states that health regulations shall be implemented with full respect for the dignity, human rights, and fundamental freedoms of persons. These amendments strike that, and instead, international health regulations will be based on principles of equity, inclusivity, and coherence. This means they can force you to undergo whatever medical intervention they deem to be in the best interest of the collective. And again, you have to parse the language that they use. When they say equity, they mean everyone is stuffed well down below the least common denominator. When they say inclusivity, that means that there are no free people left alive. That's the real definition of inclusion with the way they operate and what they do. Coherence, it means this holds for everyone. The fence of tyranny surrounds absolutely everyone. Now, this is where it gets really good. Are you ready? The IHR amendments grant dictatorial powers to the World Health Organization Director General, that guy we just looked at, the guy who was a leader in a terrorist organization and a terrorist government. The IHR amendments grant dictatorial powers to the WHO Director General and unelected regional directors. The WHO's recommendations, right now they're just recommendations, they will be legally binding by all member states and will supersede all national and state laws, including the U.S. Constitution. Now, I'm going to put the link to this article. There are some other things that we might look at going down further. I made some notes on. But you might ask, what would it take for people to allow this to go on? How do they think they can bring this about and get people to go along with it? Well, I think it quite likely that what they intend to use is something like catastrophic contagion, where it's children and infants. Last time, Cornholio targeted the old and the sick. This will target the young, the most vulnerable, the most precious, and then when you do that, everyone's willing to go along with this nonsense. Now, we need to understand, I've talked about technocracy lately as well. What technocracy really is, you need to a certain degree, separate the idea of technology from technocracy. They use technology as a means of bringing it about and enforcing it, but it's not really the key component of technocracy. Technocracy, its main tenet is that those who are educated, those who know how to make things happen, are the ones who should be in charge. And stupid, common, ignorant people shouldn't get to choose who those people are. And to a large extent, much more than you would believe, that is already in place. It is in place through NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and it's in place through regional councils and authorities that decide where money from Washington gets spent. They're the ones who really hold power over all the elected officials, the local county officials and city officials that you think are the ones who have power. They have to go crawl and beg from these technocratic organizations for the money to do anything. So, with this example with the World Health Organization, the ones who have the say are going to be Dr. Tedros, and then the regional governors, the regional health experts that they put into place. So, they're going to be the ones who have the power. The Director General will have sole power to declare the beginning and end of a public health emergency of international concern. They even have an acronym for it, PHEI. And the sole power to dictate responses, including travel restrictions, mask mandates, lockdowns, business closures, and vaccine requirements, and the allocation of resources to that PHEI, including funding and what drugs are to be manufactured and used. And if you read that carefully, it means that it's not an understatement that he will have dictatorial powers. These dictates will override and overrule any and all national laws within member states, including the U.S. Constitution. They're legally binding. So, dictatorial powers will be given to unelected regional directors of the World Health Organization. Privacy rights are going to be gone. They're going to be able to give your public health, your personal health information, and the people out there in the healthcare industry know about, in insurance industry, whatever else, know about HIPAA. HIPAA's out the door. Where essential to purposes of assessing and managing a public health risk, your health data, they can share it with whomever they want. Expanding censorship. The World Health Organization will, listen to the way they phrase it, strengthen capacities to counter misinformation and disinformation at the global level. In other words, censorship of information will be expanded. The WHO, not Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey and those guys, the World Health Organization will dictate what truth is. And since its decisions are legally binding, countries must enforce compliance. And that's going to mean health certificates, which is really vaccine passports. After that comes the information about Trump shutting off the money to him, but really, it just went to Gavi, Gates Organization, and went right on to the World Health Organization. But they've already run a tabletop exercise for this catastrophic contagion. Now, that doesn't mean for sure that that's going to be what they use, but why do they keep practicing this stuff? Why? Because the last time they practiced it and it didn't go well. But if you're not familiar with Event 201, go out and watch the summary video of what they discussed, And that was before, about a month and a half, if I recall correctly, right before the Cornholio thing broke. So, just some information. I wanted to keep it short tonight. It's still a holiday week. And if you're out there and if you're listening live, we're getting plenty of hits on BitChute and Gab and YouTube as well after the fact. And I know starting this up during the holiday season, probably not the best move, but I felt that this is what I'm supposed to do. And I wanted to go ahead and get started rather than waiting until the first of the year. So I hope that this information is useful to you. I will put the links out there. I encourage you to look at this information for yourself. Always check the information for yourself. There are reasons that I use the resources, the people that I do, because I know that Dr. Mercola, his information is reliable. And I'll say, and this is a good example, he focuses on the corporate masters. The first point in the story at a glance: the World Health Organization has become extraordinarily conflicted, primarily through its funding, and by serving corporate masters, it fails miserably at promoting global health. It's not just about the corporate masters. The corporate masters are a big part of the beast, and the beast serves the Lord of Darkness. And that's what this stuff is really about. And you're not going to get that spiritual take from Dr. Mercola. And I don't know what his beliefs are about faith and religion. That doesn't matter. He gives good information. I know that when Dr. Mercola puts information out there, he has researched it. There are footnotes at the end. You can go check all the documents for yourself. And that's why he's one of the resources that I use. I do encourage you, make this your starting page for your news inquiry each day. The helpful websites page with the different resources that are listed here when you want to know about something that's out there in the news or something that might not be out there in the news. This is a good place to find it. I do encourage you, I invite you, pray for this ministry and what we do. I'm thankful for all the people watching, all the people listening, all the people giving thumbs ups and sharing our videos. I see that going on, and I really do appreciate it. I encourage you to prayerfully consider financially supporting this ministry. You can go right here to financial support. It's going to take you to our page where you can become a patron of this ministry on Patreon. Encourage you to consider that. Your support means a lot. It makes it possible for us to do this. It will make it, if support increases, it will make it possible for us to do even more. This is Matthias 76 together, because it is together. We do this together. Together, we are decoding the deception. God bless and have a great day.